Hi and welcome back to the I Hit Drums YouTube channel. The band that I'm in are currently getting ready for a tour over the Easter break, so we spent the weekend down in Edinburgh rehearsing at Banana Row Studios. This meant we had a very early start driving through the Cairngorms, which is lovely, from the Highlands of Scotland down into central Edinburgh. Now before I left I had to pack certain things because going to a rehearsal studio means you need to bring certain breakables, and that's what we're going to discuss today. So this is the bare bones of a kit that you'd probably expect to find either at a gig when you're kit sharing or at a rehearsal studio. Typically at a rehearsal studio you might find that the snare drum is there and the bass drum pedal is there. But unfortunately the snare drum probably won't be a Ludwig 402 and the bass drum pedal probably won't be an Iron Cobra. Now if you're more comfortable using your own pedal and that's the pedal you're going to be gigging with, I'd recommend you still take that to the rehearsal studio if you can. Also, if you don't get a lot of opportunity to use your own snare drum, and that's likely to be the one drum of your own that you're actually using on a gig, take it to the rehearsal studio. You'll learn how it works, you'll learn how it responds much more quickly by actually using it on a regular basis. So assuming the rehearsal room has this setup, what you really need to bring is your cymbals and your sticks. Some rehearsal studios actually offer cymbals at an extra charge, so realistically, a lot of rehearsal studios you might only need to take a bag of sticks, and if you're living in a city and you're having to get the bus, this is actually a really good option for you. Spending that extra £5 might make a big difference to you if you're having to bus it across a city. But once you've added your own cymbals and you've added your own sticks, you should be all set for your rehearsal. But what about the stool? Now, a lot of rehearsal studios will provide a stool, but keep in mind, this stool has been sat on a lot by a lot of people and probably a lot of sweaty people, so you might want to take your own stool. I normally take my own stool to every rehearsal and every gig because this is actually set at the height that I already need it to be, and once I know the height of my stool, I know how high everything else needs to be, like my snare drum and my toms and my cymbals. So starting with the stool that's already fixed to your height of preference is a really good way to get comfortable on the kit quickly. Okay, so now you should be quite comfortable at your rehearsal. Now personally, when I rehearse, I don't actually usually rehearse with my normal cymbals which are on the kit just now, because we're either rehearsing in a house a lot of the times, because we live in the Highlands of Scotland and that's actually an option, or if we are in a rehearsal room like we were this weekend, I'll still take my low volume cymbals. This means that the overall rehearsal volume, especially if you are rehearsing in someone's house, can be a lot quieter, and that's going to save everyone's hearing. Now we had a 5-hour rehearsal, and 5 hours beating the hell out of my normal cymbals would have been pretty loud. Now I wear ear protection, and everyone else should, but not everyone does, and you can save your ears and your bandmates' ears just by using low volume cymbals. Now that being said, if we were rehearsing for a gig that was coming up, let's say the following weekend, and this is our last rehearsal before that gig, I'd probably use the louder cymbals at that point. And I'm also fortunate that I can rehearse here with my loud cymbals, so they're not going to feel strange to me if I'm always using low volume cymbals and then suddenly on the gig I'm using normal cymbals. But I would recommend it. Also, if you're writing material, these are quite good because when you're writing you don't have to have everything blasting out all the time, and that can make for a much more pleasant writing environment. Now whether you're rehearsing or you're going to play a gig, there are still a few other extras that you should consider bringing with you every time. The first one is moon gel. This is a very fast way of transforming the sound of a drum, especially on a rehearsal kit, because that drum might sound pretty bad, so a little bit of moon gel can transform how the kit sounds really quickly, and you might not even have to tune it. But that's something else to consider bringing, a tuning key. Now when lots of people are using rehearsal room drum kits, it's quite likely they're going to be changing those tom sounds to be more like their own kit and their own sound preference. So when you arrive, chances are you might have to tweak the toms a little bit, maybe even the bass drum, just to get the sound that you're more comfortable using. But also, if you are bringing your own snare drum, then you're traveling with the drum, so it's moving around in its case. The temperature is also likely to be different, and that's going to affect how the snare drum sounds as well. And this goes for rehearsal rooms or gig venues. So you definitely need a drum tuning key for your snare drum and also for the toms. Now if you're on a gig, do not tune another drummer's toms or bass drum. You can tune your own snare drum on the gig, tweak that however much you like, but do not tune another drummer's kit. They'll have that set up for them, and if you're on the gig and you're borrowing their drums, then they're doing you a favor. Do not tune them. So to recap, if you're going to a rehearsal studio, you will likely need sticks and cymbals at a minimum. But you might also want to take a bass drum pedal, maybe your own stool, and maybe your own snare drum. If you're doing a gig, then you'll need to take your cymbals, your snare drum, your pedal perhaps, and I'd recommend you take your stool. Also, don't forget to take a drum key and some moon gel. But is there anything else that you might need for a rehearsal or a gig? Yes, there is. There's still a few things that you should definitely take whether you're doing a rehearsal or a gig. The first thing is a hi-hat clutch. Now this is a very important bit of kit, and if you know that your hi-hat clutch is solid and it's going to work every time, it's not going to fail on you, then you want to take that with you. Now most rehearsal studios will provide a hi-hat clutch, but they might charge you for it. Likewise at gigs, take your hi-hat clutch, because that's actually going to make changeover much easier. You could actually get your hi-hats attached to your clutch before you even hit the stage, and then it's just a case of popping it on top and you're good to go. Another couple of important items are cymbal protectors that go on the cymbal stands and the felts that go with them. So that pops on there. Now your cymbal is safe. Now again, most rehearsal studios will have these, but they might charge for these. Sometimes they're just not there at all, which means that your cymbal is going to be going straight onto a metal stand. So metal on metal, not good for cymbals. So have a few of these in your stick bag as well, and that's going to mean that whether you're on the gig or whether you're at rehearsal, your cymbals aren't going to get broken. Now when it comes to playing gigs, you might have the luxury of having a decent backstage space, and you might also have some crew on stage. If this is the case, you might want to consider bringing your own snare stand and your own cymbal stands as well, because this means that you can actually set up all of your cymbals and your snare backstage on the stands, and if you let the tech team know when the previous band has finished, all you need to do is take your stands onto the stage ready to go, and if the tech team on stage know that you have your own cymbal stands and you've been very nice and polite to them, they may just take off the previous drummer's stands and cymbals in one go, leaving you with the shells, just the toms and the bass drum on stage, which means that you can set up very quickly. If you're playing a small venue though, it might not be worth doing that and just do the usual changeover of sharing cymbal stands. A few other items you might want to consider taking is some water. I had a 5-hour rehearsal on Saturday, and I can assure you, you're going to need a drink at some point. So save yourself some money, get a bottle, take some water. You might even want to take a little snack, just something you can munch on in between songs perhaps, especially if some of the other musicians just need to discuss something, because obviously you're not going to be playing the drums while they're having a conversation, are you? And if you're like me and you love coffee and the rehearsal happens to be during the day, take some coffee. So let's talk about etiquette in the rehearsal room. Now you're going to be using gear that's been used by a lot of other people and will be used by a lot of other people. It's probably not going to be the best drum kit in the world, and providing that you treat it well, it's going to last. So treat it like your own gear and don't steal the cymbal felts. Now when it comes to gig etiquette, I've already touched on the matter of not tuning drums, okay? So if you're borrowing someone else's kit, don't start tuning the toms, don't start tuning the bass drum. It's not your kit. The person that has brought that drum kit and is kindly letting you use it has it set up for them, for their show. And it's probably the headline act, so they want to sound good. So don't start messing around with the toms. If you're going to tune anything, tune your own snare drum. That's it. If you aren't too happy with the sound of the toms, then use dampening. Use moon gel, use some kind of towel, whatever you normally do to get the sound that you get, apply that to the drums. That's okay, because you're not actually going to affect the sound of the drum. So let's say you're second or third on the bill and you've got about 15 minutes changeover between bands. This isn't very much time to get one band's gear off and your gear on. But that doesn't mean that you should crowd the stage the second that band has finished and start trying to get all your gear on stage. Let the drummer before you pack up. What I would recommend you do is maybe talk to them before they even go on stage. Now most venues have a backstage space, so you get to meet the other bands. So just say, is it cool if I put my cymbals on straight away? And if there's a band on after you, what you can do, and you could even talk to the drummer after you if you like, you can take off your cymbals first. Now by taking your cymbals off straight away, that means the other drummer can start putting their cymbals on the kit whilst you start packing up your snare drum, your stick bag, your pedal, whatever else. And it means that the changeover time for the other band is going to be way more efficient, and they're going to thank you for it. Now, when you finish your set and it's time to pack up your stuff, that is exactly what you should be doing. Don't go chat to a mate off stage, don't go get a beer, just pack up as quickly as possible. If you found it stressful to set up in 15 minutes, then the drummer after you is also going to find it stressful. So do them a favour, pack up your stuff straight away, and then talk to your mates, then get a drink. And remember, when you're on the gig, if it's someone else's drum kit, treat it like it was your own. Don't start smashing it up, don't bash it around, and most of all, this is the most important thing, when you arrive at the venue, find the drummer who the drum kit belongs to and say, thank you very much for letting me use your drum kit, because they're doing you a favour. You don't have to bring all your gear because they're bringing all theirs. So I hope that was helpful, and you've got a good insight now into what you need to bring for a rehearsal and what you need to bring for a gig. Sometimes you can leave things at home, it's not essential, but I'd recommend some of those smaller items you always have with you just in case. That's it for this week. Until next time, enjoy!